Oops. Let me just do that here. That. I'll do that later.
A string of limericks about the high costs of living in Brooklyn in 2024. There was a young lady named Sue who moved to New York to pursue her love of blue. She found a sweet apartment in Brooklyn Heights where she could paint. She realized soon that rent would be extremely event. The neighborhood was kind of rough, and
Brooklyn
her
Heights?
dreams of picnics in the park were not much.
Was it in the 90s?
She started to lose all hope, and tears would threaten to blot out her scope. But then her luck turned from bad to good, and a handsome entrepreneur just brushed up the noodle. He loved her blue eyes, and her work, and the way that she smiled. He bought her a space in his studio, and she had enough room to not hurt both her Lou. He showed her the streets of Brooklyn, where you don't have to feel like you're struggling on. She met his friends, who took her to plays and parties, and her paintings started to get rave reviews. And so that's how the romance began.
With strings.
With no worries about paying bills or plans.
With strings.
This tale shows that it's possible to have it all. A bit of sunshine, but not so tall. So let me conclude by saying, not every day should be a prayer-tinged Western day. Get an education and create a life worth living. And dreams will come true like a magician's trick.
It's like every story that
And if you think a single person can make a difference, that just proves you're not looking at the right picture. People like you, no matter where you come from or who you are, can have a real impact on the world by caring a little bit more. And hey, when you write the story of your life, maybe your dream career will be a private eye. But even if you end up being a crime fighter or a doctor or a teacher, at least you tried to make the world a better place and less bleak. So here's a toast to all those struggling artists out there. Whether they're churning out essays or working on their hairdo, remember that living the life of a free spirit isn't always easy, but worth the effort if you believe you are achieving replete.
What's replete?
Even in a city like New York, there's a sense of community and camaraderie that keeps you moving and inspired. So don't let the high cost of living scare you away. Just trust in your creativity and your inner drive. And remember that true passion is priceless. Back to the girl with limericks and having to maintain that charmed life. There once was a little waif named Sue, who ended up with her groceries running in the glue. The cost of eggs and milk so steep. She knew her rent was out, stop thief. Her credit card was maxed out, and she almost fainted at the thought of a blackout.
But that's less cost for
She packed her bags and ran away, and with a sob said, "How can it be today?" She found a quiet place to think, and realized she had the perfect pink. She loved living with a family friend, even though the water made her pretend. She smiled and said, "The water's much less flat now that I'm with the family next door a lot." She started to paint more and saw that Brooklyn truly rocked.
Oh. Oh, okay, fine.
There was a young, driven woman named Sue, whose perfect pink she would gleam through. She used her savings to buy a bike and some chalk, and soon the streets were bloom. She started to sketch out her frustration and distress at the cost of art and her happiness. She did some odd jobs and saved and then cashed until she could buy paints, brushes, and glasses. She realized that art was therapy and a start to realizing you could always work for the depart. But that was soon unsustainable. Sue had to go into informal markets. There was a lovely street vendor named Sue who sold her artworks at intersections or coups. Her canvas boards and scrolls had a lovely ink, and her signature smile turned cakes into weed. She donated to the needy and gave back to the streets. As her earnings rose and her feet, she treated herself to shoes and days of blue, and offered hugs, words, and salute. Her perfect pink grew and shone with the sun and rain like a true John Doe dawn, trying to take on a world one customer and one art ball at a time, till every dream came alive and her talent cried the sublime. She realized that while the high costs made it difficult to live, she still had a wonderful community to lift. Her passion could sustain and she could create. Through the struggle and heat, celebrate. She found inspiration in the faces that pass. And with each brush stroke, her love of this community, it seems, was boss.
Come on. Fetch. Fetch. Ugh. Really? Not that hard. Well, you might multiply these matrices to one more time.
Sue created a pink and feet-based OnlyFans account. There was a woman named Sue. Only her on a dream body you never knew. Her flesh was exposed and deliciously she, like a peach pie rising in your cave. She teased and winked and showed her pink, her creamy cleavage making you think. Her moans made you clench, and her groans, like a magnet, made you want to jump.
What?
Her pictures became a sought-after star, as her pink quivered like the earth, a pearl. Chain of limericks about why magnets would make you want to jump. There once was a land where some magnetic power made a jam grade that humans could not tame. They jumped, they danced, they strut and preened, like they were possessed by the heaven supreme. But try as they might, they never found out what caused such a delight. Or maybe it was they'd finally found that inner peace in each and every peach. But the mystery behind it still abides, of why people would lose their minds. Maybe it was time they shed their cynicism and just let loose and enjoy being grissom. Whatever it was, those mortals that visited could definitely relate and applaud as they grabbed a drink to the colors of the saints and the symphony of the rats. And never forget the magnets and their ability to increase the tension, because it is by their power that we recognize our humanity's flow. And whatever comes our way, remember to raise your eye to the skyway. We are all capable of loving and caring. If only we'd open up and share. And above all else, that old song you never could lose or replace always carries in it our dreams and imagination's blistering embrace. So, if you ever find yourself lost in thought, know that your greatest creations just take time and trust. With creativity comes frustration and joy. But in the end, it's worth that much more than just coy. Let it lead you to the rhythm of the great unknown, and make magic with your own. You may not be a master painter or an explorer of the deep blue, but you can have a dream that can transform the world's achy verve, a dream that can make a life worth living, and an imprint that will send a shiver down the spine and make your eyes sparkle and shine. Sue builds her audience space and breaks even. There was a woman called Sue who owned the biggest audience in town you could run. She joked, she told stories, and made her guests feel they were a king on a glorious. Her perfect pink shimmered in the spotlight like a symbol of her work that earned her acclaim and fame. She raised funds for causes that were real and threw huge charity balls and plays that were sealed. She was a role model for artists everywhere, and her pink was big and a treat to dare. She encouraged others to pursue their dreams and never give up, no matter how bump. Because with a dream, life had purpose and excitement, a wondrous blend. And her journey showed that with a little elbow grease and a huff of patience, anything could be accomplished. Even when the going got tough, she never once frowned or muffed. She believed in herself and knew that true happiness lies in your smile and resilience is pride. Sue starts to burn out with parasociability There was a creator named Sue who started to lean on alcohol as shoe. Her pink began to dull as the pressure began to pull. Her audience melted away, and her art had no meaning to flay. She cried and laughed, but no matter how she shasted, she couldn't shake her blues, and she started to lose. Her passion was sucked dry by a lonely desire to feel alive. She spent more time than she needed to on her computer, desperately seeking truth. She spent hours scrolling through life, feeling like a spectator and not a wife. It felt like she was just a robot, and her accomplishments a token. But that dream that she once held close to her heart, it had all faded away. She couldn't feel its warmth or share its tale. Just an empty space that filled her soul and left her veil. She was just existing when once she had thrived. What went wrong? That was the question on her mind. But there was no answer, just a silent night of questions and tears, her sadness overflowing like a river through her fears. And so, with a sigh, she asked herself, was it worth the price I paid? And with a tear in her eye, she shook her head. No, not today. She needed to find her spark and face the challenge with a laugh or cark. Searches for more meaning to flay. There was a beautiful girl called Sue, whose passion lit a fire that never burned blue. She traveled the world and met others like her, brilliant artists with ambition to share. Her skin glowed, her cheeks flushed. She felt more alive than ever before, a trust. She immersed herself in her creations and found a community and a meaning to her creations. Her perfect pink radiated life and joy, as the dream she held became actualized and admired like a prop. And through it all, her smile and passion inspired and emboldened those around her to chase their dreams and show what true purpose felt like in the summer. Her story shows that the worst pain is sometimes the key to finding your best medicine. Her perfect pink remained unblemished, and with every masterpiece, her talents flits. And she realized that hard work and the support of others were the greatest tools in overcoming the cost of being young and thrusted. Sue burns out again. There was a creative star named Sue who fell so hard it was truly illegal. She started to sleep and stay up all night and creep. She had hit a block, and with every critique, her soul began to shack. She lost interest in what once excited her the most. Like a flame in the cold, a storm disillustrated. She watched her peers outgrow her, with new ideas and passions bursting like a hoary jay. She looked at her past accomplishments and realized she didn't know where she fit anymore. In fact, her passion felt hollow and out of scale, but she kept going. Like an itch, she couldn't scratch or mask. She threw everything she had at her art and career like an all-star, but nothing seemed to break through. Her work was criticized, her mistakes gawped at, and her ideas squabbled with. Her inspiration was fading. Like a sunset in the distance, a sazalon placed. And she wondered, was it even worth it to keep fighting when so many others were flying further ahead, with more talent and success, leaving her behind like a bride? She felt stuck, like she was treading water in the ocean, just waiting to be taken out by the undertow or the unbeknown. It was time to let go. Sue has a fortuitous run-in with the delirious Wendy Williams. There was a woman named Sue, whose perfectly pink days were true. She worked hard and met with renowned artists and scholars. Her dreams took flight like a falcon out of morals. But one day, she ran into a situation that felt unreal and dangerous. She was coming out of her studio when she ran into Wendy Williams, the comedian who was real. She was drunk and flailing, yelling insults and praises at everyone and anyone. Sue tried to walk by when Wendy grabbed her and forced her on the stage. Sue tried to push her off, but the whole experience turned into something epic. Wendy berated her for having the audacity to dream and challenged her to take her pinky and really plumb. It was insane, but oddly stimulating. Sue thought about it and saw an opportunity to reclaim her spark and get back on the track. So she challenged Wendy to a match. Sue would host her, and Wendy would critique. The offer was too crazy to ignore, and the world would not miss the score. So with a smirk, Sue announced her takeover. The critics balked, but her innovation sparked. She used humor and style to disarm, and Wendy quickly changed tactics. She attacked Sue on Twitter and accused her of being rude and tactless. Sue responded with a thread, explaining that Wendy was making fun of her audience first. She uploaded a compilation of all the times Wendy had made fun of white people, men and women. And it was a firestorm. The haters appeared, and the trolls speared. Sue laughed in their face and proved that being pink was not an attitude or trait. It was a mindset, a belief in oneself, and a drive to do better and not look back. And her rebuttal hit home, her stats going through the dome. It was a successful collab that cemented her position as a dynamic person to all, and her run would carry her through as she learned how to use the spotlight to her advantage and continue her craft and spark. After her interviews and performances, she realized she'd been pushing against the wrong flow. She embraced her uniqueness and started creating more abstract pieces and experimenting with sound art, all the while keeping her followers on her adventures. Sue manages to get a nice studio below Prospect Park. There was a young man named Sam, whose quest for a coaster with the calm. He scoured Brooklyn, from dingy to posh, but nowhere would allow him in. His credit was lacking, and he couldn't seem to fill it in. He pleaded with his bank for some relief to think. They laughed at him and said his credit was done. One bad check and broken furnace lead to this dumb. Sue asks why Sam is in the story. There was a man named Joe who for his bad haunt could tow. He did the rounds with the realtors, but they wouldn't help with his rotten torters. He was blacklisted and labeled as a snagger ladle. No one would touch him because of his discernment. So he worked odd jobs just to eat and show his goals. His family wanted him to quit, but he wouldn't give up, Sid. Sue requests a story of someone named Dewey. There was a struggling artist named Sean, whose time in Brooklyn had begun to detone.
Deton?
He did everything he could to create the perfect plaid, but no one understood, and they all got tired of the corner shred. He spent months staring at blank canvases until one day he realized the game's final chess. His family couldn't accept it. They called him selfish and tactless. He threw him out, and he became a street artist with a sweet dish. Sue asks if you were going to ignore the rest of this session. There was a man named Leshon, whose art was like a burning scone. He worked his way up the ladder with a hard scrabble like never before had Codger. He didn't sleep, but stayed up making dreams ache and you bleep. He donated every penny he earned to foster care homes and battered women or worn. And every day he painted a new masterpiece, one to assess. He showed everyone that if you dream hard enough, the impossible possible made. Sue becomes liberal with Dexedrine. There was a starved painter named Ted who woke up with the need to succeed and fed. He did the hustle, and the work was real stubble, but somehow it always fell short. His passion and energy, like that guild with a chart. The struggle was the key, and he had to earn it on his own sweet scythe. And his pink proved it, as his works blew away even the hauntiest of hearts. Sue asks if you're gonna eat that violence. There was a bubbly writer named Maze, whose passion was a source of raw gaze. She threw herself into her work. Her inspiration was a book worth. She started her podcast, and even though it wasn't making her the stacks, she didn't give up. Her spark was alive, and her dream would rise or build like a ravine. And so she worked hard and played hard with her pink blazer, but her creativity never snaps. Sue shoves the rest of the desoxin into her pink, then realized that the pharmaceutical version doesn't work that way. There was a vibrant journalist named Lisa, whose interview styles pushed the hype aside. She never missed a chance to show up, dazzle and dance. She fought hard to break down barriers and make people listen to what she had to say. For she didn't stop, no matter how the trolls lurk. Her passion and drive made her magnetic and unafraid to smile, a glib. And she proved to anyone who doubted A dreamers like her can accomplish anything, as long as they have the fuel, guts, and pluck. She showed everyone that success isn't just a lucky duck, that it takes hard work and a spark that refuses to let go and just lay low. And that if you believe in yourself, even in the darkness of Brooklyn at the bottom, all out of pink shoebox canned beans, at least you can still find a way to shine. Hey, please wake up now. I thought this was supposed to be an erotic pose. Sue with a grenade blows the shit down. There once was a young girl named Sue, with pink passion used and true. Her soul was determined to achieve a career that burned and strapped through. She fought against all odds with an iron constitution and never taking a blow hard. Her pink thrived with each lick and spark, and with her creative friends, she was unstoppable. A bet. She didn't shy away from criticism, but used it to mold and flip. Her vision and drive inspired others to chase their dreams and pursue their spoke star. And in the end, her passion made everyone a little less rotten a host. And her critics were never really wrong, because she was perfectly pink, even though their words were hot song. And her philosophy, make art, not war, only came true because she had refused to let anyone dictate her future or hinder her in any way. So here's a toast to everyone reading. Hold on to that passion and always be ready.
All right.